If you find yourself frustrated watching tons of people move abroad and start this new life, and you're sitting there behind your screen trying to figure out how exactly are these people moving and restarting their lives abroad, in this video I'm going to talk about the 3 most common ways I've seen people move abroad and financially prepare for each. Welcome to my channel. My name is Kirsten. On my channel I talk about my experience living abroad, particularly what it's like living in Spain, and now that I have 9 years abroad. So if any of those things interest you, then make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification button to stay up to date with all my videos. Now, the first way that a lot of people go abroad is what they do is they save a bunch of money, and they pretty much, once they hit a certain number, a goal, that could be 10,000, it could be 5,000, it could be 20,000, they take that money and they move abroad. They pick countries that, you know, have a good exchange rate. I saw this a lot when I lived in Panama. Literally the phrase that they use, so like, I work, I save my money, and I just travel until the money runs out, and then I go back home. When I moved abroad, I kind of did this. I kind of did a mixture of this and some other ways I'm going to mention, where I pretty much saved up what I thought I needed to get me started, not necessarily what I needed to live on. And from there, I did live off my savings for a little bit until it ran out, and I got a little bit desperate, but I made it happen. It's important to mention with this kind of saving and traveling approach, what a lot of people also do is volunteer or house sit. This can cut the price of accommodations, because with volunteering, sometimes you can trade work for accommodations, and also with house sitting, you are essentially staying in someone's home or taking care of their pets while they're away in exchange for a place to stay. If you are interested in house sitting in particular, Stephanie Perry on her channel talks a lot about house sitting, and I believe she has a house sitter school. So definitely check that out if that is something you would like to do. The next approach is kind of a luxury, I would consider it, depending on the company that you work for. But if you work for a company that has offices internationally and in different locations, then there is the option of asking for your company to transfer you to work in an office in another country. I've seen a lot of the ways that some people move abroad is this happens to their partner. So sometimes it's not necessarily them that kind of started this move abroad. It was their partner, and their partner either being assigned to or asking to work in a different location. Another way people move abroad is with freelancing or remote work. So I kind of put those things in the same category, because essentially you are working online, whatever business, whether you're working for a company or working for yourself, your main business is done online. Now, I have seen some people who have mixed both their work online with their work on the ground in their new country, which is something that I did. I started working online, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But I started working online when I first moved abroad to Panama, and then I also started working on the ground, doing various activities. One of those things was teaching yoga. So having a remote job, and the key with that too is making sure that within your remote job there are limitations, because sometimes you need to be in a certain time zone in certain countries. But digital remote work or freelance work online is another way that people move abroad. And last most common way, and this is the way that I used as well to move abroad, is through teaching English. And this can be done a couple different ways. You can literally go through a teaching English program. There's some programs, some schools in certain locations, and I've known people have done this, where they will pay for almost everything. They'll pay for your housing, they'll pay for your move, and then you get a salary on top of that. Those programs usually are, more competitive to get into. They usually have certain requirements, but it's definitely a way that a lot of people get abroad. I came to Spain through a teaching English program. And even though one of the programs that I worked with, the public program, I think is going through some drama and isn't as open as it was before, there are still a lot of programs within Spain that do support teaching English. Obviously, with this role, if you go through a company or a program, you are on a contract, which means that you are on a time limit, so that's something to consider. There's also the option of teaching English online, which is also something that I did. So you can teach online. Sometimes you can freelance and kind of teach, whoever you want online. There are also different platforms that will help you to find clients. But teaching English is kind of like, I want to say, the gateway. Now with like the digital nomad visa and remote work being so prevalent, I think remote work and teaching English are kind of the two most common and most accessible ways of getting abroad. But teaching English is definitely probably the easiest kind of entry point, because usually you just need like a teaching English certification. Some programs do require a college degree, some don't, but kind of having a basic understanding of the English language and a basic understanding of how to teach the English language is one of the ways that you can get abroad. All right, so if you stuck to the end, thank you. Now I'm going to break down how to financially prepare for each of these different ways to move abroad. So number one, we talked about volunteering or house sitting or saving up money and kind of living off your savings. So with this one, you definitely want to make sure that you are planning and calculating exactly how much money you're going to need on a monthly or yearly basis, whichever is easiest for you. Budgeting, if you're a good budgeter, or if you're not a good budgeter, getting better at budgeting is definitely something that's going to help you so that you can stay abroad longer and not get yourself into a situation where you run out of money. It's also important to save and always have, like, I call it maybe like emergency savings, and that's just enough money to get you if you have to leave suddenly, if there are problems with your visa, that you have enough money saved so that you can leave the country, or whether it's to go back home or go to a different country, you have enough money to get you out of a situation if things don't work out the way that you want them to. If you are relocating with a company, then you want to make sure you are clear on exactly what the company is going to cover when it comes to your relocation. You want to make sure that you understand your contracts. You want to understand if your role is different in another country. You want to research the company that you're going to, or the office that you're going to be relocating to, because all of those things are going to influence what your new life is going to be like. And you want to make sure that just because you're having a job, you're going to have a job once you move, doesn't mean that the job is going to cover all the costs that you think it's going to, or that doesn't always mean that your job is going to cover all of your costs. If you are freelancing or having a remote job, and if it's your first, particularly if it's your first like time working remotely or working fully remotely, I would definitely give yourself some time to adjust to remote work life. Make sure that you have a good routine set in place. Make sure that you understand your income, exactly how much you're earning and what that income is going to look like in a different country. Planning out your expenses in the new country that you want to move to. Being able to budget. If you are freelancing, if you plan to freelance when you go abroad, making sure that you're having at least 2 solid income streams in your freelance business before you move abroad, so that way if something happens to one stream of income, then you can rely a little bit on the other stream of income. I'd also do this for a remote job too, because even though a remote job is great and you can work from wherever, it's still a job, and layoffs happen, budget cuts happen, conflicts happen. So just because you have a job doesn't mean that that job is 100% secure. So making sure that you have another source of income, making sure that your line of work is stable, and making sure that you also have savings savings as well for times when maybe your freelance business is running a little bit low and you can't get as many clients as you normally have, or if your job decides to cut your hours, etc. Having some savings to fall back on in case of job interruptions is going to save you and make your new life abroad a little bit easier. And then last, we have teaching English. I also forgot to mention with teaching English, another kind of side, a related way to get abroad is through au pair work or like babysitting. And that is also another way to kind of kick the cost of your accommodations out of the way and receive a salary so that you can pocket a little bit more money. But if you're going the teaching English route, I would definitely saving money, I think, in all of these different ways is key, and it will just make your life easier. Why? Because when I first moved to Spain, I didn't get even though I had the job, and even though it was a program, and even though there were thousands, hundreds of us in the program, and I went to work every day, it still took me about 3 months to receive my first paycheck. Of course, that's not the case with every program, but it can happen. And it happened to me in Panama too. Like, I was working with this teaching English company, and it was going great, and I was getting paid, and then all of a sudden I got excuses, payments were late. So having some money to fall back on, having some savings will make it so you're not worrying about paying your rent, or you're not worrying about, you're not just buying rice and beans to live off of because you're waiting on your paycheck. So having a good savings, I think, is really the key. Having a good savings and having a second stream of income, I think, are the two things that will financially prepare you the most for moving abroad and staying abroad. Well, I hope you found this video helpful. If you would like me to break down any of those categories that I talked about today, let me know in the comments. And if you are someone that's looking to move abroad, let me know in the comments which way of life or which avenue seems the best for you. And if you want more insights on what my life is like living in Spain, I have a Substack where I not only talk about the details of what it is like adulting and creating this life that I have here in Spain. I also talk about money management and freelance work on my Substack, so you can click the link in the description to check it out. And the videos about my life in Spain, so if you want to learn more, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao for now.